20 years ago, on November 10th, 2001, my 14th birthday, I wanted nothing more than my very first effect pedal. Now, I got a little bit more than I bargained for in the form of the Korg AX1G guitar high-performance processor. Now, I'm sure some of you watching, like me, have held on to your first pedal for sentimental reasons for any number of years. But even those sentimental reasons, sometimes I look at this thing and just wonder, why is it still here? Well, there's a reason it's still here, because we're going to do a whole in-depth rundown on this thing with the benefit of 20 years of hindsight. I'm going to show you some of the stock presets that came loaded into this thing, some of the presets I created 20 years ago, some of the presets I've created recently, and also answer the question, is a pedal like this really a good idea as a first effect pedal? What's going on, my friends? It's your old pal Sean Pierce Johnson here, and welcome to my YouTube channel, where I am very excited to begin this 20 years of pedal retrospective series on the channel. Make sure you click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell, or sign up for my email list to make sure you don't miss any of these fun videos that are coming up in the series. I'm really excited for it. But enough of that housekeeping out of the way, let's actually talk about the Korg AX1G. Now, it's part of the Toneworks series, and of course, we know Toneworks, at least the cool Toneworks, from that episode of the JHS show, which, oddly enough, back in 2001, I wasn't aware of in any way, shape, or form. Like, that video was the first time I had seen any of these single Toneworks pedals. The Toneworks products that Korg made that I was aware of were more along the lines of this, multi-effects. Basically anything that a beginner to an intermediate guitar player would most likely look at buying. There were several different AX1 Toneworks products. There was the AX1G, like this, the AX1B for bass. There were expanded versions like the AX1000, and the Toneworks line even worked its way into the Pandora boxes, which I had the PX4, I believe, which was a fantastic little grab-and-go headphone amplifier that was sadly stolen from me while I was a student at GIT. I honestly didn't know what to expect with this thing when I opened up the wrapping, because I had never really even heard of it before. I'm sure my dad went to the local guitar center and said to the sales guy, hey, my son wants his first pedal, what do you recommend? And he got what the Guitar Center sales rep recommended. I don't fault him for that in any way, shape, or form. I barely knew anything about pedals as it was. So how was I to expect him to buy, 5 Boss pedals or 1 Boss pedal? I didn't even know what I wanted. And this is what I wound up with: a black plastic enclosure with a metal bottom. It powers itself off of 4 AA batteries, which was always an interesting thing. It definitely carried over from childhood toys to have to power this with AA batteries. And it's kind of at face value, not much. You have 2 foot switches, which essentially function as backwards and forwards through the presets, a built-in expression pedal, which has about as much range as, I don't know, something that doesn't have much range. It does have an LCD screen, which is actually kind of a cool thing for a beginner's guitar pedal. You could cycle through the presets and they all had names, so you could go back to one that you recognized, and you could change the names when you edited the presets however you saw fit. If you pressed down on the up and down foot switches at the same time, it bypassed the whole pedal entirely and activated the built-in tuner. It has 1 input with an L and H switch, which I'm assuming stands for low and high. I haven't touched it at all since 2001. It's been in the H position ever since. So for 20 years, I didn't realize this was a thing. It also has an output, which is also labeled a phone's output. So this thing could actually function as a headphone silent practicing thing, and has speaker simulation, which back in the day, I had no idea. I had no idea that you could actually do direct kind of guitar stuff with this. And really, I was just kind of like, oh, why would I want to plug headphones in this thing if I'm plugging it into my amplifier? Boy, was I young and naive. You could also power it with a 9-volt power supply. It doesn't require that much power to power up, and it's a standard center negative thing. You don't need a special power supply in order to power this thing up. So with some of this basic information out of the day, let's go ahead and plug the AX1G into my Hughes & Kettner Black Spirit 200. And I'm gonna show you some of the stock presets that came loaded onto this thing. And some of them are actually pretty cool. I think the biggest endorsement I can give to the AX1G is how many sounds were available in this thing for me at such an early stage in my playing career. The fact that I had access to so many different types of guitar sounds, from the typical modulation stuff to varying degrees of gain staging, and also being able to incorporate stuff like filters and ring mods that I had very little experience with, means that this was a very powerful piece of equipment for me to have at such an early stage. I wish I would have known more about it all those years ago. But I suppose now we should address the buttons underneath and next to the LCD screens. This is how you're going to do the deep editing on the AX1G. And I'll be the first person to say that for a 14-year-old, this is not a very intuitive thing to be able to edit. Now, although with the benefit of hindsight, I look through this and everything's fairly obvious, I guess I can say. At 14, I was just excited to have a pedal. I didn't want to read a manual, and I just kind of figured things out on my own. Now, there is a lot that you can do here. You can add on multiple effects to the sound. You can change up the gain staging, whether you want a light or heavy overdrive, distortion, even fuzz. You can put high pass and low pass filters, wahs, ring modulators, assign volume effects to the expression pedal, rename the presets. You can also, of course, adjust the EQ, which, before we get into the sound samples, I just want to say this. This is the thing that I literally just realized a few weeks ago when I plugged this thing back in before filming this video. The EQ, the way that they label the controls, is low G, mid FC, and high G. What? Could it not have been bass, middle frequency, and treble? Because that's basically what it is. Anyway, why don't we take a listen to a preset that I created all those years ago that I called SPJ Dirt. But let's compare it to an SPJ Dirt that I made a couple weeks ago and decide whether or not my tastes have changed or have they remained the same. And now it's time to answer the question, was the Korg AX1G a good first pedal for me? And with the benefit of 20 years of hindsight, I can honestly say that my views on it sit firmly in the middle. On the one hand, this had so many different sounds and so many different effects and so many different presets that I got exposed to a wide array of guitar tones at a very young age. And when I started messing around with it, it gave me a great palette of effects to choose from. But on the one hand, it wasn't easy for me to figure out how to get all that power at my disposal. Nothing on this for a 14-year-old and for someone who doesn't really know how these effects are controlled, nothing on this is very clearly labeled to give you an idea of how things should operate. Granted, I could have read a manual and, probably solved that issue a lot sooner, but for about the first year of my possession of this, I was only using the presets. I didn't even mess with the editor. For a beginner, you really want something that's simple, where you can grab a knob, turn it, make a change, and instantaneously hear it. Maybe for a beginner that is a little bit more bookish, they'll spend time with an instruction manual. If they really are curious, they'll find one online for themselves, but I guess it really just depends on the person. Me, I'm much more of an experience informs my usage of a piece of equipment. At least I was back then. Still am to an extent this day, but anyway, it's been fun to look back on this pedal, and it's been fun to get to know it again and realize all these years later why I've held on to it. I've held on to it because at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to go back and relive some of those days where I was just beginning to explore tone and explore effects pedals. And like any good collector, I keep it in the box. In fact, it's probably going to go back into the closet as soon as I finish all the filming for this video, but I have to say, for a pedal that holds such a place of honor in my playing history and in my playing career, it needs to be treated with care and needs to be treated like a sensitive relic. I'm always going to be grateful to my parents for actually feeding this guitar journey of mine, getting me effects pedals, buying equipment for me, gifting equipment to me. Having a supportive family really helped me figure out where I was going to go in life. And this was part of one of those steps. And who would have thought 20 years later, I'd have a YouTube channel where I was making a living based on effects pedals. I know I didn't think that was gonna happen because YouTube was not even a thing for about another 4 or 5 years. And yet here we sit. You and me here on YouTube talking about effects pedals. And I hope you enjoyed this little 20-year retrospective of my first effect pedal. I would love to know what your first effect pedal was, so let me know what it was in the comment section below. I may even have it. And if you enjoyed this, I would love if you would do a few things to help support this channel. First and foremost, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Share the link to it with a guitar playing friend of yours, and of course, click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. But the best way for you to support the channel and the easiest way for us to stay in touch is if you sign up for my email list. You can click the card in the top right hand corner of your screen. You can enter this URL into your web browser of choice, or you can just click the link in the description box down below. You'll be taken to the sign up page where all I need is your name, your email address, and you're signed up. Every video I make directly to you without the algorithm trying to mess things up. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, wishing you watching great tone, great health, and of course, happy stomping. Cheers, friends. I'll see you in the future. God bless.